Hello, thank you for joining live here, Luca. I'm so excited to have you on our very first live stream on Inspired to Build. And I'm really excited because this is probably one of my absolute favorite ways of putting AI to work. So we are probably going to start with some introductions, but if you are joining us live on any of the platforms, we have quite a few different ones that we are live on here. And feel free to drop in the comments where you are joining live from. So feel free to just like pop in, saying where you're joining from. Hopefully it's lunchtime for you, or maybe it's dinner time, or whatever you are joining from. If you're on the West Coast, maybe you're having your breakfast. But hi, my name is Erica. Hello, Alan. Lovely to have you joining us live. And yeah, we'll probably start first. My name is Erica Huberg, and I work at Tetrate. And here we have Luca. Luca, where are you dialing in from, though? And who are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm Luca, as you said, co-founder, CTO at Get-ikigai. We're going to learn a lot more throughout, I guess. And I'm dialing in from Munich, so it's dark outside. It's like late evening now. Just missed the sun, but yes. And sitting in the old potato factory where the startup studios are in.
Well, hi, Gleb, as well. Yeah, hopefully there's someone else from London. And yeah, is it dark in London? Maybe it is dark, like Munich, getting dark already. And well, maybe, Luca, in a weird way, maybe I'm having a bit of, this is my ikigai. Is that how you pronounce it? Like I get to do this thing what I really enjoy, where I get to, I don't know if the world needs this though, because isn't that what the ikigai is about? So do you want to tell us a little bit more about who you are? Like, how did you get into building things, and how did you get into building Get-ikigai in particular?
Oh, that can be a very short or very long story. I'm going to start with a long one and then interrupt me and hurry me up if you want it shorter. How did I get into building? I think it's Lego.
Yeah, that's a broad question, isn't it? Building anything, or building software, or building software that has AI features in them.
Well, one leads to the other. Like Lego had this great robotics thing, and then I got curious about that, and that turned me into more IT. And before I understood what I was doing, I was learning how to code back then in 9th grade, trying to build more things. There was no other reason than to have fun with it. And then, one thing led to the other, and I studied IT. Very early, went into AI, worked at an enterprise back then with the first version of Keras, TensorFlow 0.7, I think.
When you say very early, what year are we talking?
2015, that should be. So it's like GPUs were already a thing, and AI was starting to become a more like thing that you could do with tools, so with like Python and frameworks and stuff like that. But I joined a lab of PhDs back then as a first semester bachelor, and they just pointed at me as like, this is the new guy, he should figure out how this new thing works. We're gonna do the machine learning stuff.
Okay,
and
because
so
you were
I just jumped in, tried to understand what this deep learning thing is, tried to understand how I can make it useful. It was for medical use cases, so that was very fun. And did since then a lot of different AI things. So generally worked for different enterprises while studying. And then at the end of my bachelor's realized, while this is all very cool, you can't study AI. And I did not want to bother with going more down the route of like masters in IT. So instead I switched to finance to see the other side of the coin of the world. And instead just did more AI there because, well, turns out they have a lot of use cases, which is fun to build for. And have seen quite a range of what you can do with AI, from like the original vision models and the YOLO, if someone knows that still, to then text-based or more heuristics-based Gaussian stuff. I've seen a lot of different things. None of them back then quite in production, always more in the lab space. And during my master's, then I joined a startup in food tech. Lived in Copenhagen for a while.
Oh, wow.
It was quite fun because the challenge now with ChatGPT, that's a different thing, but back then that didn't exist. And the challenge was really like, how can you help people cook based on the ingredients they have in their fridge?
Oh, well, I need that almost all the time because, by the way, I'm really bad at cooking though. So I also need an easy mode.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
almost like a game, you know, where there's hard mode and easy mode. I need easy mode. Yeah.
sadly, that startup doesn't exist anymore. It was quite fun.
Yeah.
But also nowadays, you can do a lot of what we had to build with food scientists
Yeah.
just through ChatGPT. Just because back then, that was the time of GPT-2. I used GPT-2 to make great predictions of what could be next ingredients that we should think about. And it was like in the back end, there was like a food science graph net that kind of figured out, okay, you need something sour, you need something sweet, something umami, and like fit together kind of a recipe. And yeah, that's my first like production that I saw of like proper AI systems, which was really fun.
I think it'd be great if someone who's watching this actually builds this again. I would use it. They have one user.
It actually had like hundreds of thousands of users. It was very Europe based. They pivoted into more the B2B space because it was not earning a lot of money back then.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've gone way off track because I go.
Happy to chat about anything.
It's lunchtime for me. I think you talked about food and it all went in for lunchtime for me.
After doing that for a while, had to write a thesis. Went to MIT and wrote a thesis there during the whole COVID times. So it was more on, okay, how can we actually understand what experts are saying from different industries, from research, from politics, compile that together. And came back to Munich after all of that, and you still could not study AI, or at least not properly. And thus, we built up a student initiative, TUM AI. If you're not from Europe, you probably didn't hear of it. If you're in San Francisco, then there's a shit ton of people from there now. But the whole idea behind this was, how can you bring AI more into this ecosystem? How can you build this up? And we did a hackathon back then with this small company that no one knew back then called OpenAI. And then everything
no one knew about OpenAI. Yeah, of course. At one point, no one knew about OpenAI.
Yeah.
And
that was 2019, 2020. I don't know exactly when that was, but sometime like that. And this initiative kind of like completely followed the AI wave, being ahead of the universities, and like, how do you use AI? Does industry use AI? And that grew incredibly quickly.
Okay.
And that's also how I got into recruiting. That's kind of where the circle closes into why I'm building what I'm building now.
Yeah.
Because we were having to recruit very quickly. And I've never been on the side of the recruiter rather than the person applying, and had to figure it out kind of from scratch. I mean, we were freshly done with our thesis, trying to figure out how things work, and just went along with it. And then afterwards went to companies, to headhunters we knew, to cool people out of our network to understand, okay, how do we now actually do it? Because we were just like figuring it out as we went.
Yeah.
And the feedback we got was like, no, you actually did like really well, and we would like to learn from how you did it, which was not the answer that we wanted to hear from an industry that affects like literally everybody.
Yeah.
Hence, we started getting into more and more what's wrong with this. I was at the time still working for another startup doing vision models. The whole Dino thing was very fun, using LiDAR and satellite data. So I've seen different AI stuff. And then in recruiting, that's kind of where it clicked of, okay, there's a huge thing holding us back in recruiting, which is you need to understand people. And the one thing that LLMs got better and better and better and better at is understanding people.
Because people express themselves with language.
Yeah. And thus we went into the space trying to understand what's broken, what is just market dynamic, even though it sucks, what are old systems, new systems, where are people screaming that it's annoying versus where is actually something broken, and found our space in enterprises, essentially, developing more and more autonomous systems for enterprises to help hiring managers be more driving the recruiting by themselves. So instead of having a long-winded recruiting process, instead of losing information every step of the way, we're aiming to connect talents essentially directly to the person that hires
wants
you.
them, on their team.
Yeah.
So,
and also based on the information that makes this whole thing possible instead of job ads and CVs.
Because it's so interesting. Obviously, I've been in the position as a hiring manager and desperately wanting someone on my team, right? Because that is what you have a need. And ideally, you want someone on your team yesterday. That is what you want, because that is why you're hiring. And you want the right person. You know that you're not going to get to have them for forever. That is not how it works, because that would not be realistic. But you have something that you want to achieve, right? And you want to create a good dynamic with the people on your team and with yourself. And also, so therefore, for the person who's coming to join the team and the company, you want them to have a good time too. It's a two-way street. And I think it's so tricky, right? And you can't know fully until the person is there. However, I also spoken to other people that I know who are and have been as a hiring manager, who often can feel really detached from especially the initial parts of the recruiting process as a hiring manager, because there are screening processes and it feels very structured and very industrial almost.
I mean, you're doing it at an industrial scale, so it makes sense why it works the way it works.
Yeah. So if there's anyone listening who also have been a hiring manager or been applying for jobs, who have felt the industrial scale of the hiring process, we feel you. I've been there and feel the maybe impersonal part of it. I do have a question then. So how can AI solve such a real problem? And how, like, AI is artificial, right? The A stands for artificial. And if a part of the feeling is that it feels industrial, especially at the enterprise scale, how can we make it feel more human by bringing something artificial into the process? And what made you think then to bring something artificial to maybe make it more human or solve this problem? Or are you aiming to solve this problem at all, Luca?
Aiming to do so, yes. No, the fun thing is I would love to give an answer that is like, obviously from the day one, we understood that this is the way that it should be. Instead, we built the wrong thing multiple times, which is how it goes.
I mean, sounds normal in a company that you would do that. And I'll see you comment that you felt that and you're still feeling it. So all the empathy for you, with you, and also feel free to share any experiences that you have in the comments and share with each other. But yeah, back to you, Luca, on solving this. And maybe if we're lucky, Alan gets the opportunity to experience your solution where he applies for a job.
That would be nice.
Or as a hiring manager, he gets to experience your solution. Tell us more how you've been addressing this.
Generally, when you start looking at the recruiting problem, something you figure out quite quickly is that there's people need to find each other part in it. So kind of a matching.
Data.
And what is interesting is if you look at it currently, then you have those CV screening phases, the initial interview with the recruiter, all of that just optimizes so that you, Erica, the hiring manager, in the end has some CVs on their table that they should look at.
Or resumes for our American audience.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
Making fun of the language differences.
In recruiting, there's so many words. Even hiring manager alone is a word that I didn't know before I entered it. And it's just the team lead. It's the person that you're going to be working with. Yeah. They need to do the hiring as well. And hence, in the end, we went in there and we realized, okay, AI should understand both what the company is looking for as well as who the talent is very, very good, very, very well, and better than the CV scanning that a recruiter does on keywords. Like generally the state is still that it's based on keywords. And what we learned quite quickly is that the information that you have in a job ad and in a CV for matching is not the best data. So we launched a matching system where you could just upload whatever. And very quickly, people didn't upload CVs anymore to find the roles that they were interested in, but went and uploaded other like recommendation letters or old motivation letters. And finally, someone that wrote up a Google Doc just by themselves, like what they're actually curious about, where they want to develop. And then the jobs got recommended by the system. And at the same time, we were talking with the companies and like, would you like this? What is interesting about this? And realized on one hand, they only care about talent traffic or the talent assets, or kind of like commission or click models. And at the same time, they also don't have data. All they know on the recruiting end of things is the job ad, which confused us a lot because the job ad doesn't tell you a lot. If you've been on a job ad lately, it's like, we're looking for maybe senior, but then also what does senior mean?
What does it mean?
Do you not have the time to like coach a junior, or do you expect the person to be productive from day one? And that's maybe also why you want to rather poach someone than hire someone from the people that you already know. Or do you expect that person to need to lead people themselves very soon, and that's why you need a senior person? None of this information.
What are you actually looking for? What are your expectations of the person when they come into the role? Yes.
And the same goes for the talent side. Like, why are we hiring based on what you did like to do in the past instead of what you want to contribute now, or what you were good in the past instead of what you're good at potentially now? The CV has none of the information of where you're currently developing, what you want to bring maybe to a company that they didn't even know they could ask for. A lot of this information is also missing.
Exactly. I've had that situation as a hiring manager. Sometimes I've got a resume, a CV, whatever we want to call it, and I see that I'd seen that the person had done such different jobs than what I was hiring for. And I said to the recruiter, have you spoken to this person? Do they know that what we're hiring for is very different from what they've done? I am happy to speak to them. I just want to make sure that they know. Like, if they're up for something different, I'm up for it. I just want to make sure that they know. Was that clear to them? They look very experienced. They look amazing, but I don't want to disappoint them.
Or waste each other's time in the end. That's what a recruiting is also optimizing a lot for. Like, it's a lot of an industry that makes one person, the recruiter, because they're cheaper than the hiring manager, do a lot of pre-screening, pre-whatever, so that in the end it doesn't get you out of working for the company. And what AI allows you to do, and that's kind of now why AI, where did AI come in? After we realized that it's not just great for like understanding who fits well together, but actually going way deeper than the industry could so far in understanding what is actually needed and building those bridges. It's just a game of understanding what hiring managers need, understanding what talents need, and kind of recommending them to each other and bringing them closer to each other, which is also why we don't really do screening anymore. Because screening is filtering out by something you would expect to lower your workload for focusing on other potential candidates more. First of all, AI is very scalable, more scalable than a human. And on the other hand, the information that you need to make those choices depends fully on what the hiring manager needs, which, as we established, is not often found in the right way in the job ad. So there's a lot of things that make recruiting work right now because it needs to be scalable. So there's a lot of heuristics that they're hiring for. That's why keywords also work so well, because you can put keywords anywhere and find people quickly. But kind of the system is just stuck in trying to get the most out of it while running forward and not being able to like see a meter in front of you. So what we're doing is really using AI to get all of the communication load that you need to do out of it, and kind of like also make that way more parallelizable. Like, we can talk to a team lead and understand what they need whenever they want to chat to it. The same goes for the talent. The information that you need to understand about the talent is also completely dependent on what we know from the hiring manager. But yet we don't need to make them talk to each other immediately on the career side. So there's a lot of things that you can bring AI into to automate things, but there's also just so much more depth you can get to because you have system that understands a lot of things very well help you understand what you need. We can put the entire enterprise context and help a hiring manager what they need based on that context, based on what candidates are typically coming into that company. So there's a lot of optimizations you can do in getting the right information, understanding what is really needed instead of dumbing it down to like seniorities and skills and whatever.
So, and you were applying AI to this space,
Yeah.
which is an incredibly human part of the process.
Yeah.
So human, because it's this dance of getting to know each other and really sussing out. So can you just make sure I understand, what is the interface that people are using when they are doing this sort of sussing out? Are they just writing? Are they getting prompted with questions? Are they uploading documents? Like, how does it work?
It's a mix of things. Documents were actually the most unnecessary thing. Like, we can understand what is relevant to a talent already after 4 messages of questions. Questions are very important.
So it's like you almost like interview them.
So but in a different way. Generally, the interface is a chatbot. It's as chatbot-y as you can make it feel, because that's what people know how to use.
And it's very recruitment familiar.
Yeah. And so in the end, it is a conversation, but what we need is we need the information to help you become relevant to a role, or to help you understand what you actually need. So the questions are guided by the other side, are guided by the context that we know. But again, the questions are for the goal of the right people should meet and chat. The questions are not for the goal of you need to pass an interview, or you need to pass a screening stage. Because we can get rid of all of this, we can get to completely different data and information that can cut through all of this noise.
You're trying to get to know people.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get ikigai.
Yes. Generally, what is very important for the position, for understanding the hiring managers, is really getting to the reasons behind. Like, why is that going to be useful that you're going to be working on? And thus also, which candidate could be useful in doing that. That's a guess of recruiting and also hiring manager most of the time.
Yeah.
So having then a normal conversation with the talent and understanding, okay, how could you be useful? What does your history or also your future kind of tell about why you could be really exciting in this role? And then presenting that back and forth, figuring out where the gaps are, and kind of like leading this dance of conversations between hiring managers and talents on both sides, figuring out, okay, and you people, you should now chat, get to know each other, see if this works out. Or if you learn this doesn't, feedback this information of why this didn't work out for you, why this is not an interesting candidate or not a relevant role for you. And we can feedback this information to the system to make new recommendations, learn more about you, and bring people together.
And does your solution only help people when it comes to external talent, or does it only do stuff for internal talent within the company? I'm just actually curious, because when I was a hiring manager, I actually did a lot of internal hiring as well.
The answer is yes, both.
Okay, so it doesn't matter where the candidate is coming from.
No, also in terms of traffic, enterprises have all kinds of traffic, from their career page to direct applications to a talent pool to advertisements. Internal traffic is also just a traffic source, so that doesn't really matter. In Germany, we have a lot of laws that make it obligatory that you consider people from inside the company as well, so that is relevant there. And on the other hand, it's also a budget game. Like, external hiring has a lot more budget than internal hiring, so we see ourselves also being implemented way more in external hiring.
I have another little possibly silly question because of the company name. Of the questions you are asking, are you asking people what they love and what they're good at and what the world needs? I'm sure you can't ask people that. And are you asking the hiring manager what they obviously will pay people to do?
The name came after the system.
Okay.
And what we realized is that it's not necessarily the questions that we're asking specifically, because they're very nuanced and personal and unique to like you as well as the position. On the other hand, we realized that what we need to know to actually make the fit work well is if your idea of what you want to contribute fits to what is actually needed, if your idea of what you're good at fits to what is useful, but also just the same, what you don't want to do, what you're not good at, or like,
do you ask people that?
Yes, that's also one of the earliest questions typically, because it helps so much in reducing the opportunity space, because it's not worth focusing on that. It's worth focusing on the things that work out and not filtering out what doesn't. So by understanding what you don't like doing, first of all, we have a whole catalog that we can go into, unlike going deeper there. We have a whole thing that the AI can now understand, because if you say you don't like something, why don't you like doing that? Like, for example, in terms for me, I really hate working on IT tickets. But the moment that you turn this into your goal is to never see this ticket again, I find it incredibly interesting. So the reason, again, is super important. So just having a list of
what makes
whatever doesn't help.
Say there, like, what makes you not enjoy that? So the follow-up there.
And the more that we can find those consistencies or inconsistencies, the better the recommendation in the end works, the better the helping you become relevant to a position works. Because if we understand very well what you or I can need in a position, then we can help a talent also take everything that they want to contribute or find exciting about it and present it in a way that is useful again.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I obviously now really curious about the challenges. I have so many questions. I know I had so many questions to ask. It's so fascinating and so interesting. Keep going for a bit until you have to leave, but we'll have at least 10, 15 more minutes. I think I can keep you for, Luca. And just want to ask you around challenges. Alam says he loves working on tickets. Alam, I'm going to just put that onto here. Alam loves working on tickets. So, Luca, maybe you and Alam needs to be on a team together so that you can complement each other. So you don't like working on the tickets
to work on, yes.
Yeah, so you can just complement each other. That'd be great. That's how you build a team, right? Different people on it that like doing different things.
Yes. Oh.
So
challenges.
So challenges. I am curious specifically about, you gather a lot of information about people. Security, data security, also regulations. You mentioned regulations in Germany. I'm sure that must be challenging. And the AI space is evolving so fast. I'm sure that is so tricky. What are the top ones that has been challenging for you?
There's been a lot in AI going through it. Like, funnily enough, AI is typically trained to do what the user wants. And in this case, we don't want to do what the user wants, but need to guide them through something. And having AI guide the user is quite complicated.
What does that mean? Sorry.
If you ask ChatGPT something, it will answer. Having ChatGPT ask you something and have that be robust, have that be in a way that actually makes sense to the context of the data and not you. Like the signal that AI has in you can override it because you're this user is really, really strong. And also having a fluent conversation is only trained in a way where the user leads the conversation. So turning that on its head, a lot of things break. It's really funny. Like having an AI lead a conversation for you and not get off the rails, but instead like push you, get those interesting tidbits is really, really annoying. Which is mainly because AI was never trained this way.
How did you overcome that challenge? How did you have to architect or design the system to overcome that? Like, how did you have to think differently?
A lot of it is trial and error, because measurability is really, really, really hard. Measurability also in the sense of like recruiting is really hard to measure in terms of it being actually useful to the hiring manager. So you can't directly train, or you're going to go down really weird rabbit holes. And what we realized is you can abuse the interface, like the API that you have to different models, or the tokens that you send, or how a conversation looks like to the model versus what is actually happening, quite a lot. So while it looks like a ChatGPT chat in terms of the interface, it's, for example, not just even one model you're talking to. It's not also...
You have loads of models.
Yeah, and we change who is asking you typically kind of every message. So there's a lot of things that we learned to do to make the AI focus on what the AI wants to know rather than what the user currently ones. Because in the end, you can talk a lot about your hobbies. And maybe for some positions, this is really relevant and very, very interesting. For other positions, this is completely irrelevant. Now, we don't want to waste your time talking about your hobbies if we already know that that's going to be completely irrelevant for any kind of hiring manager. So having that information and keeping the AI to it, we needed to help, like splice the brain of the AI open. We needed to adjust what we send to the AI, what we treat a conversation as. So a lot of things happening behind the scenes to just make it do what we want to do. And would also love for this to get easier, because then you can build on it layer by layer way quicker, rather than having to figure out how to invert an LLM.
This is quite interesting, as you say. Instead of the human leading the conversation, you want the AI to lead the conversation. This is quite interesting, actually. I didn't think about it like that, because
you see a lot of things just pop up as you go. And also UX. UX is such an interesting thing. My co-founder is coming from UX. And designing an interface, designing a flow of like what you expect people to go through, and offering them a button so they can do it with AI is completely backwards. Just because every single conversation is completely different. Like how we understand your role versus your colleague's role when they try to open a position is entirely different, because what you care about, what is relevant in your role, how your conversation will evolve is entirely different. So designing a user experience that is both robust as well as efficient, and at the same time takes care of all of the edge cases. That's where regulation comes in, like labor laws, data privacy, all of this. That's the most complicated thing, I would say, in our system by now, because
does the labor
everything you change changes everything else. So that's the most annoying thing in AI right now, that it's really, really hard to build another layer and be sure that the previous thing you just did does not get affected.
Does the labor laws make it difficult to launch in different markets?
Generally, yes, just because you need to take care of them. Practically, we spent a good time on like getting all of this right. The first customer that we had was the state. So we kind of got to focus on it very early before our systems were like fully matured. Hence, I wouldn't say that it's any problem because we took care of it from the very beginning. So in terms of data privacy, labor laws, we don't really have any issues in how our system works. What is an issue is people, not because we're handling people data. It's not because people have to use it. It's because people really don't want to change how they're doing things. And in recruiting, you have a lot of things currently being done by people. Like you have recruiters having interviews, even though all of that is there to have the information to understand if the hiring manager should talk with them. The hiring managers, some are really stuck in their ways of, no, I want to have my recruiter, I want to talk to it. So if you have AI that you can talk to, that's again making it easier. That there's a lot of things of just human behavior, because the process, the system recruiting so far has been just involving a lot of people. But if you want to make recruiting as human as you can, you want to reduce the amount of time spent doing irrelevant stuff and just focus on connecting the right talent with the right hiring manager as quickly as possible so that they can figure out if they work together.
If you look at, I have an interesting question now when we talk about this balance of the process of the people who are involved in recruiting and injecting this AI-powered tools into it. I've got two questions. One is, do you believe that this empowers recruiters to do more, or is it replacing recruiters? And then the next question I have, is it incredibly expensive to use all of these AI models to power this?
It's way cheaper than using people.
It's because AI can be very expensive.
It can, and it is, but on the other hand, like imagine having a 3-month recruiting process. So you gave a job ad, recruiters go get some talents in, they get screened, and you have 7 CVs on your table of like where the recruiters, these are really cool. And you start looking at those talents and are like, oh my God, now that I'm seeing the talents, I completely forgot to give you this really relevant information, or actually I want something completely different. Now we're wasting a whole cycle of 3 months and need to do this all over again. So this is where AI kind of saves a lot of money, not by doing it cheaper or faster than a human would, but by preventing this error from happening initially, by just being able to transmit this information very fast.
So I'm curious for you, like as a co-founder and CTO, when you architect and think about the system, how do you make sure that you don't have like costs that just like run away and all of this AI spend as well? So you build like a sensible system,
In the beginning, I would say it's a lot of understanding what explodes in costs and what doesn't, and then making sure that that's either covered by your customer and you're very open about it, or
make sure it matches the usage.
Yeah, exactly. Like matches your pricing, matches how they also understand how your system works. On the other hand, we also realized that we can do a lot of things to like make it not scale exponentially, but just linearly and things like that. Again, by doing black magic behind of like what a conversation really is. And thus there's a lot of things. And at the same time, it helps that AI just got so much cheaper. So every time that we focused more back on quality, focusing more like actually would be really useful if you have more like processing of different information, really figuring out if the context is right by running it through a bit more compute. And then AI getting 10 times cheaper and you're like, that's really helpful. And also now, while the API endpoints don't really get cheaper, what was possible a year ago is now, again, 10 times cheaper, just because there's also open source models now. And at some point, it also makes sense to move away from API endpoints and just host it yourself and get a more constant-ish cost. So you can play a lot with it. I wouldn't say that that's the biggest thing I would worry about. The biggest thing is still the change management and like people actually getting value out of it, because there's a lot that's happening also right now in recruiting of just people throwing AI on the recruiting process.
Just analyzing stuff.
More AI screening, more AI interviewing. I hope no one had the experience so far of having to have an AI interview.
Be curious if anyone, I've heard about those. If there's anyone has been interviewed by it, I've seen those things with like a video of someone, like an actual AI avatar interviewing people. Feel free to comment if you've like actually experienced that, being interviewed by an AI avatar and had to interact with that. That would be super interesting. Like if you're watching a replay of this, feel free to comment and share where you've experienced. I'll be so curious. That is interesting.
And what's getting really backward is if you do this, then while you throw AI on one thing you've done in the process so far, this process step exists purely because we are people and we needed to parallelize things. Now that you have a thing that scales, why do we do auto screening? Now recruiters need to filter out if actually what the AI just said is actually something useful. So you can't really fully trust it, which then again breaks the economics. On the other hand, like most enterprises do not really see any return on invest with like throwing AI into the process, because recruiters are actually really good at their jobs.
And do we really need a whole video of people of an avatar? That sounds expensive.
Some are more expensive, some are less. The business case is always made over like you don't need to spend like human time doing so, but then if it didn't really work out or if it makes mistakes, and you're not doing this because you get more information, but you're doing this to filter out people, then you're actually making a choice, which is then really, again, in terms of regulation, it's not really weird. Like the whole throwing AI on the existing recruiting process is to me doing the obvious thing rather than rethinking how things could go. If you're actually saying, have AI, how would you build it from scratch? Or how would you do it? And so I also see this not just in recruiting, by the way. Like most AI use cases right now are just like, hey, let's slap AI on this and hope it somehow helps. Let's have a chat interface and hope it somehow helps. It's like our magic is not the chat interface. That's just because people communicate. And recruiting is a lot about communication, so chatting feels more natural. The thing that we built is kind of an alternative to the existing recruiting process, and rethinking how we can include a hiring manager in this process to actually get the right information and remove a lot of waste of what you're doing right now. This I would love a bit more in generally across industries, that people think less, hey, how can we slap AI onto it? And more, now that we have AI, why were we doing it the way that we've been doing it so far? Why was that maybe also useful? What do we need to take care of? And then how can you actually now use this to redesign something, to redo something? That's also where AI then breaks things, because people don't want to change. So you kind of are, always trying to understand where AI can be useful while not doing something completely useless, which is what recruiting is right now doing a lot, sadly.
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know if there's anyone listening and they have a question that they want to ask to you specifically before we really have to wrap up, they feel free to drop it in the comments and I'll ask it. But I have two final questions that I just wanted to ask. So I will ask them, and if someone has something they think about, I know we have most of our live viewers on LinkedIn, so they feel free to add them there. But I'll start with my first question, which is, where do you see the space heading in like AI building, and like including when it comes to incorporating AI features, agentic features, whatever it may be, and like what excites you? Like, how is this going to help you building your features? Because you can't maybe talk about the entire industry, because that would be probably too hard to like put in one head. But for you, what excites you, and what will power and transform Get-ikigai's capabilities?
I think what's really exciting is that AI got so mainstream. That means that the average person that was not really exposed to like hardcore tech things now is using one of the most advanced tech things in the world and understands what it is. Might not understand necessarily what it's doing or how this black box works, but understands what you mean when you're talking about AI. Now we're having the companies understand more and more what agentic systems mean, no matter how you implement them. Just like this is incredibly exciting that more people are adopting the vocabulary, the understanding of what could maybe be done with it. And while we might need to figure out a lot of things won't work or aren't really where AI is useful, I like that more than just tech is thinking about this. For us, this is actually relevant because the more that a people business understands how AI can be working for them or what AI is, the more we can also have great conversations with them on it and help them remodel their recruiting process faster. On the other hand, I'm also worried about like a lot of the novel things. So I've seen way more AI tooling companies at the moment than people doing really something that's working with AI. So it's kind of like more shovels being sold than gold is being dug up.
I guess that is what I really wanted to put this live stream together, because I want people to build actual solutions that solve actual problems for humans. So I hope that can inspire people to build things, and that is why I think it's so exciting what you're doing, Luca, like actually solving problems for people.
Yeah, and I think that's what is exciting generally, that there's so much that we can still build. There's so much that can change because of AI. And I would say that most of the hype is not wrong in how we can think about it. I think most of the hype in the sense of like, oh, now we have AI, we don't have to do anything anymore, is very wrong. And that also gives you kind of this resignation from building something new, because like, now that we have AI and we can just slap AI on the recruiting process, we don't have to do it anymore. It's like, that's not going to work. That's not also how you stay competitive in hiring as well. Like, even if that would work, now if you can figure out how to do recruiting completely new, which right now involves humans thinking this through, designing this, having conversations, bringing this into systems, then we're going to get somewhere maybe.
Yeah, I think that what you were saying there was quite interesting, because there was a narrative at one point where people were saying SaaS is dead and everyone were just gonna vibe code their own SaaS solutions pretty much and run them on their own computer, because no one needed that anymore. However, I think what we are saying here is there are all of these applications of AI you can't really just like vibe code yourself to, like you can't really just vibe code yourself to Get-ikigai, because it's actually a really novel and interesting application and large scale application of AI to solve a very human problem.
But the
So
entry barrier is lower to start thinking about it. And that's what I like. Like I
yeah.
met someone recently who was working in a pharmacy
Hmm.
and got really annoyed by like all of their current systems and how this and this and
Yeah.
this is broken. And this person would have never touched a line of code, but
Yeah.
now is more thinking about like, hey, actually, like maybe with AI, I can like start actually changing this a bit for us. And while this
Hmm.
is not, in my eyes, going to lead to like a productive application very quickly, because there's a lot of other things you need to think about and go through to get something into production that's actually useful to people. Just this little change of now they're thinking about it. Now they have this thought in the brain that maybe something could be done about this.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part to me, because maybe that doesn't even require an AI solution.
I
But
know.
it's because of it that you started rethinking, like maybe we can do this different.
The opportunity is that, which I think is so exciting. So I think that is leading us to the last sort of question, or the wrap up in a way, which is advice to builders. Like, if I want to frame it, if you were to be starting in today's landscape, imagine you were starting Get-ikigai from scratch with everything that's available today. What advice would you give yourself? Because I think that will tell us a bit about what advice you would give builders who are starting today.
From the recruiting side, I'm not going to focus on it a lot because that goes into the weeds. In terms of building and AI and maybe like the landscape there now, I would give myself the advice of tune out the noise. Like something that was really, really nice 3 years ago when we started thinking about this, 2 years ago when we started like founding it, and a year ago when we were actually like deploying it to customers, is that there was no MCP, there was no different like traceability layers for AI. It's so much more valuable to sit down with 5 users and learn something about how they use it, rather than to measure the shit out of it and learn nothing. So I would actually say that like most of what you need to, or what I would need to start this business all over again, is there with just the fundamental idea of language models. Doesn't even matter which one. Just because that absorbs the complexity of human interaction. Everything else I should treat as like, is that useful to me? Does that actually help? Is that something that I need to make the whole thing work? Or does it not matter at all? And it's just something cool that you can do. And that's nice to like keep looking at it, but not really focus on it. And that's, I think, my number one advice to myself a few years back, of like, tune out the noise if I would do it right now, just because there's so many other things that can push you in the wrong direction.
I think that
focus back on why it's even possible that you're doing it. Probably it's not MCP. Maybe it is MCP, and then that's really cool. But for us, MCP is a nice add-on. It's a nice thing that we can think about. It's not something that fundamentally makes our company possible or not possible.
I think that's like a really interesting, just in general, or like tune out the noise and focus on what you need to achieve, and focus on solving the problem that you are there to solve. Because there's so much, I can get a bit stressed sometimes because there's so many things happening and so many things launching, as you said, that are shovels and shovels and shovels being built and launched. And you're like, which one am I supposed to use? I was just asking ChatGPT yesterday about different tools, because I'm like, which one is even easiest to use of all of these tools? Because at this point, I just want to use the easiest one. And that was quite interesting. And I don't think we have any new questions or comments, but I'm so thankful for anyone who tuned in live. And as we are wrapping up for today, this will be available to restream and watch, but I want to share some links. First of all, if you want to connect with Luca, this is a QR code for his LinkedIn, so you can connect with him. And here is his GitHub if you want to stalk him on there and follow his work there. And here is a link to Get-ikigai's website. if you want to check that out. But I think we've learned a lot about Get-ikigai today. If you want to connect with me, Erica Huberg, on LinkedIn, this is my QR code. And if you want to get started on building something simple and get access to some large language models, here is the Tetrate Agent Router service, which you can get $5 of credit for. So I work at Tetrate, which are being so wonderful and gracious and letting me do this wonderful live stream. So they're very supportive of me and letting me do this. So I'm very grateful for that. We'll give them a little applause for letting me do this. All sound effects on StreamYard. But thank you, Tetrate, for letting me host this live stream and bring awesome people like Luca in here. But if you want $5 to try out some large language models from OpenAI and Anthropic and XAI and so forth, you can use that QR code. So anyway, that hopefully got you started for fun and play around. But any final words, Luca, that you want to share with the audience or anything?
Feel free to reach out. Happy to talk about all kinds of things, tech and recruiting. If you know people in HR, HRIT that are really obsessed in like, hey, how can we maybe change this? Send them my way. Otherwise, thank you very much for having me on. This was very fun.
Yeah, and if you are, I'd say, a hiring manager that were inspired by this, I'd say you can probably also help connect Luca with people in your company. Not only, right, if you're a recruiter, you won't put recruiters completely out of work, right, Luca? That's not going to happen.
No. Like, generally, we want to get them out of the process work of being
you want to get them to fun stuff.
Yeah. Huh?
You want to get recruiters to do fun things instead of boring things.
Yes, strategic things, developmental things, maybe even just observability. Like we have a client where they just focus on the hardest cases or the cases that need extra support. So I don't think that recruiters need to like completely disappear. I think they need to disappear out of the process and out of the ops, how they're currently run. But that's also going to be a journey. Like again, change management, people, enterprises, it's all fun.
Oh, and thank you, Sinduri. Thank you, Alan. Oh, I love it. Love it for everyone who joined. And and thank you, Luca. So
thank you.
I'll end the stream now.